How do you DM someone with the certainty that they're going to buy and get results like this? Well, that's exactly what we're going to cover in this video. But first, let me paint a picture. You post a reel, someone comments or follows you, then you DM them and the conversation starts fine. But then you ask them what they're struggling with. And you can almost feel the energy shift completely. The responses get longer, they give you one short responses, they take longer to respond, and then they disappear. Or even worse, you get them on a call with you. You can see them with their arms crossed, and at the end they give you the "let me think about it," and then you never hear from them. And there's a specific reason to why that happens. So I want to show you a completely different way to handle your DMs. So instead of you having to chase them, they're going to ask you to help them. But first, let me walk you through what most coaches are taught to do right now, because I want you to see where it breaks and why. This is the strategy that almost everyone is teaching right now. You create some kind of content that gets people to raise their hand. Maybe it's a reel which you say, comment the word fat and I'll send you my free fat loss guide. Maybe it's a poll in your stories. Whatever it is the point to get someone to indicate that they're interested with the topic you can help with. And that part actually makes sense. Getting someone to come to you, it's always better than call messaging random people hoping that they need a trainer, because that's weird and people get offended. So the first step makes sense. That's totally fine. But here's where things start to go sideways. Once someone requests a resource, you DM them. And the standard approach says you should ask them a couple of qualifying questions. Something like, "Hey, thanks for the guide. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions to make sure I send you the right thing?" That sounds pretty reasonable. They say sure. So you ask what their goal is, how much weighting they're trying to lose, what time frame they're looking at. And you're doing this because you want to know if they're actually a serious lead. If someone says that they want to lose 1 or 2 pounds, that's probably not someone who's going to pay you $1,000 for coaching. But if someone says that they want to lose 20 pounds before summer in 4 months, now there's a real need and there is actually urgency. So after you qualify them, you transition into a call. Something like, "Hey, based on what you just told me, the free guide might help a little, but it's probably not going to be the thing that gets you to lose 20 pounds in 4 months. My coaching program could though. Would you be open to hopping on a call so I can show you how?" And that's the entire framework. Lead magnet, qualify, call. Pretty simple. And honestly, it's not bad. If you get enough people raising their hands and you move them through the process efficiently, a decent percentage will book calls and close. But things are shifting. Too many coaches are using this approach. So the moment you start asking qualifying questions after someone requests a lead magnet, even though you frame it like, "I just want to make sure I want to give you the right thing," the other person's brain is already pattern matching. They've seen this before. And somewhere in the back of their mind, a little alarm goes off that says, "This person is trying to sell me something." And it doesn't matter how smooth or genuine your questions are. There's actually a name for what happens in their brain when this kicks in. In psychology, it's called reactance. It's what happens when someone feels their ability to choose freely is being manipulated. The moment a person senses that the conversation has an hidden agenda, their brain basically puts up a wall. They stop being honest, they give you short answers, and they start looking for an exit. And that's why you get ghosted so much. It's not because the other person doesn't have a problem, or because they wouldn't benefit from your coaching. It's because the way their conversation is structured made them feel like they're being moved through a funnel. And nobody wants to feel like they're being moved through a funnel. So now the question becomes, if people can already sense what you're doing, and doing more of the same thing doesn't fix it, what's the alternative? There is a better approach. The alternative is to completely remove the selling intent from the conversation. And I don't mean to hide it better, but completely remove it. Think about it. If the problem is that people sense that you're trying to sell them something, what would happen if instead of trying to sell, you just help them? Like genuinely helping them, with zero expectations of getting something back. Because I can tell you that changes the dynamic completely. When someone feels like you want something from them, they put up a wall. But when someone feels like you're giving them something for no reason, the opposite happens. They open up and they trust you and come back for more. And eventually, they are the ones asking if they can work with you. That's what happened with my clients when we stopped running their DMs conversations like sales funnels and starting running them like actual conversation when the only goal was to help. Now, I know that sounds a little too simple and you might be thinking, okay, but I need to actually make money. I can't give everything for free. And you'd be right. But the way this works, it's not that you give everything away and hope for the best. There's a very specific sequence to how you give value and where that value leads. And that's what makes the whole thing work. Now let me walk you through it. The first thing is to start human. This changes how you open the entire conversation. For example, in the first approach, the conversation starts because of a free guide. The entire conversation is transactional from the first message. But in this approach, the conversation starts like a normal human interaction. Whether someone followed you, liked your content, commented or something, or even requested a resource, the first thing that you do is talk to them like a person. Super important. Something like, hey, I appreciate the follow, man. Where are you from? Alaska. Crazy, I've never been there. I heard it's pretty cool though. And now you're having a normal conversation. Where are you from? What do you do for work? How old are you? That's regular stuff that people talk about. And this is important because of what it does psychologically. When you start a conversation with someone and the first thing that you do is ask them about them as a person and not about their fitness goals or their struggles, you do two things at once. You make them feel seen as a human being rather than as a lead, and you lower their guard, because nothing about this conversation pattern matches what a sales pitch looks like to them. Now, a lot of coaches skip this because this feels like wasting time. You have limited hours in a day and you want to get to the point. But the thing is, this is the point, because the rapport that you build in these few first messages is what determines whether the rest of the conversation ever happens. Let me give you a real example of what happens when you skip this step. There's a coach who was told to reach out to all his past leads to try to rebook them on calls. So he went through the entire DM list and messaged every single one of them saying, "Hey, how's the progress been since the last time we talked? Pretty reasonable, right? Like you care about the results." He sent it to all of them, and most of them left them unread. And one person responded and sent something like, "Oh yeah, I'm good, I'm just doing my own workout." And the coach didn't know what to do with that, so he just said, "Oh, that's perfect." And then the conversation ended. Think about what happened from the other person's perspective. Someone they haven't heard from a while suddenly pops up asking about their progress. Get a load of this guy, like their brain is going to think, this guy is trying to sell me. So they either don't respond at all, or they give you the shortest possible answer to end the conversation. But what if the other coach had reached out and said, "Hey man, how you been?" They have a short back and forth about regular lifestyle, and then, after there's an actual connection happening again, the coach says, "Hey, by the way, we haven't talked about the gym in a while. Did you ever get to the goal that you were working toward?" Now, that's totally different, because the other person doesn't feel like they're being reopened as a lead. They feel like someone they know is genuinely asking about their life. And when the question of the gym pops up, it feels more natural, not really strategic. So they're way more likely to be honest. "Nah, I never really got there." "Oh, why not? Let me know what happened. I might be able to send you something that helps." Those are two completely different conversations. And the only difference is whether the conversation started with business or it started with a connection. And the results are day and night. So the goal in the opening phase is not to qualify someone. Your goal is to make them feel like a person, sense who they are, and find some small point of connection. That's it. Once you have a small conversation going, something even they can relate on, that's when you can naturally start trailing the conversation towards fitness. And the key word is trail. You're not pivoting hard into a sales. You don't want to say something like, "What's your biggest fitness struggle right now?" You're gradually letting the conversation move in that direction, because it actually makes sense. If they follow a fitness account, they're interested in fitness. So it's natural for that point to actually come up. And when it does, it needs to feel like something natural, not a setup, because it wasn't actually one. The second thing is asking the right questions. Once the conversation naturally moves towards fitness, this is where most coaches make the second big mistake. They ask questions as if they were a sales script. "What's your biggest struggle right now? Any struggles lately? What are your fitness goals?" And these are what I call low authority questions. They are too broad, too generic, and worst of all, they've been used on this person before by other coaches. So the moment you ask, "What are you struggling with?" in a DM, you might as well be wearing a tag that says, "I'm about to sell you something." But here's what's interesting. The information that you're trying to get is the same. You do need to know what their goal is. You do need to understand what's holding them back. The difference is how you frame that question and what you offer in return. So instead of saying, "What are you struggling with?" you better say, "What's holding you back right now? Because I might have some free resources that I could help you with." In the first version, they hear qualifying questions and they already know what's coming next. But in the second version, they hear an offer. Someone is telling them, "Give me context and I'll give you value for free." And here's the thing, when you position it that way, people will tell you everything. They want to give you all the details because they want the best possible help for free. It's in their best interest to be specific. You don't have to pull information out because they are going to volunteer for it. But there's another layer that's very important, and it has to do with how you frame the question. Instead of asking questions that imply that there is something wrong with them, you want to imply that they're actually capable, but they're missing the right piece. And there is a massive difference between what are you struggling with and what do you think is the one thing that's keeping you from hitting the goal? Because I bet once you have the right approach for that, everything else falls in place. The first framing says you have a problem, and the second one says you're almost there, you're just missing a piece. And obviously, people respond way better to the second approach because it respects their intelligence and their effort. Let me give you a real scenario. Say for example, someone has been DMing with you and they mention the fact that they have lost 40 pounds, but it took them 4 years. A lot of coaches, when they're here, they say, "Hey, good job, that's amazing progress," because they want to be supportive. And that sounds nice, but it's actually the wrong move because you just validated that it took 4 years for a result that should have taken 1. So you should say something like, "Good job on losing 40 pounds, but let me ask you something honestly. Why do you think it took 4 years?" "I don't know, just been taking my time." "Yeah, I get that, but you'd want it to be faster, right? Everyone wants it to be faster." So what's the biggest thing that's been holding you back? Because I have some stuff that could probably help you with that. And I get how frustrating it must be to work that hard for so long. But you also implemented a very specific seed that said, This could have gone way faster, and here's the reason why it didn't. And now they're going to tell you what their problem is, because you are offering to help. And the whole conversation feels genuine because you care about the results rather than trying to extract information so that you can pitch them. Now, the third step is the free value Trojan horse. So now that you understand their goal, you know what's holding them back, you have positioned the conversation so they trust you with your intent. And this is the moment where most coaches would say something like, would you be open to hopping on a call so I can help you with this? Don't do that, at least not yet. What you should do instead is give them free value. And I don't mean some generic PDF and a link to a lead magnet. I mean a very specific piece of content that directly solves the exact problem they just told you about. And the best version of this is a YouTube video. And there's a very specific reason for which I'll get in a second. So let's say this person says that they've been struggling with fat loss, but they can't seem to stay consistent with their nutrition. You should have a video on your YouTube channel that goes over the exact topic in depth. I'm not talking about a 90-second reel, but actually like 20 or 30-minute breakdown where you walk them through the entire problem, explain why it happens, and give them a real framework for fixing it. You send them the link and say, hey, I actually have a video that covers exactly what you're dealing with. Watch this and let me know what you think. This is all about trust. The moment you offer to solve someone a problem for free, with no second intent at the end, something shifts in how they see you. There's a concept in human psychology called reciprocity. When someone does something genuinely helpful for you without asking anything in return, you feel a natural pull to give something back. And that's how you get people wired. We want to be fair and we want to reciprocate with someone that helps us. And so what happens over time is that that person starts to feel like they owe you something, not in a manipulative way, but in a real human way. You've given them your help, you've given them time and your knowledge, and now when you eventually suggest hopping on a call, they want to do it because it feels like the right thing and because they already know you are the real deal. The second reason is about where you are sending them. When you send someone a YouTube video, you're moving them off Instagram and into a completely different environment. Now, I have an entire video that breaks down why YouTube specifically is the platform that makes this whole system work, because it has to do with how people consume content on YouTube versus Instagram and why that matters for trust building. I'll link it down below so you can watch it after this one, because it explains the engine behind everything that I'm about to show you here. But in short, when someone sits down and watches 20 or 30 minutes of your videos, they are giving you focused attention. They are hearing your voice, seeing how you think, watching how you solve problems. And if the video is actually good, YouTube algorithm starts recommending more of your videos. So they watch one, then another, and before they know it, they spend hours with you. That's your middle funnel doing the work for you. Your reels catch attention on Instagram, your DMs build connection, and your YouTube content does the actual nurturing and trust building. Each piece has a specific job, and when they work together, the result is that people show up to calls already convinced that you can help them. Without YouTube, you can still make DMs work, but you're going to be doing a lot of more heavy lifting in their conversation and on the call. With YouTube in the mix, the DMs becomes almost easy because you're not trying to build trust in a text conversation. You're outsourcing trust building to content that does it better than you could ever do in your DMs. Now, the fourth and last point is follow-ups. Let's say they watch a video, maybe they watch two. Now what? You follow up and you ask them a very specific question. What did you get from it? What are you going to implement? This is not small talk. This is the single most important question in the whole process because of what it lets you do next. When they tell you what they've been planning to implement, they are going to focus on the stuff they understood and they feel confident about. Yeah, I'm going to start tracking my macros more consistently and meal prepping on Sundays. Whatever it is. And here's where the magic happens. You know your stuff well enough that they know their plan has a gap. Not because the video was bad, but because free content can give you the information and it can give you the framework, but it can't give you the personalized application. There's always something that depends on the specific situation that a general video can't fully address. So you acknowledge what they said, you validate it, and then you point to the gap. That's great. Sounds like you got a lot from it. But I'm curious, what's your plan for the specific thing that's missing? They won't have an answer, of course, because that's the gap. That's where coaching comes in. And so you say, why don't we hop on a quick call and I'll help you figure that part out? Look at what happened here. You didn't pitch a program. You didn't say, are you interested in my coaching? You identify a real problem in the real plan and offer them help to solve it. And they're going to say yes, because you've already proven that you can give genuine help. So the call just feels like the natural next step. Not a sales pitch that you're trying to be pushed into. And that's the difference between trying to close someone and simply being so helpful that the close becomes obvious. Because think about it, If you help someone solve 2 problems for free and then you point out a third one that they can solve on their own, of course they're going to want your help. You've already demonstrated that your help actually works. And here's something that coaches are afraid of. They think, but if I solve all their problems for free, why would they ever pay me? And the answer is that a coach doesn't exist because they have a magical knowledge that nobody else can access. The information is out there. Anyone can find a meal plan or a program online for free. The reason coaches exist is because people can't apply the information on their own. They need accountability. They need personalization. They need someone to adjust things when they stop working. They need coaching itself. And no amount of free content replaces that. So you're not giving away the store. You're giving away the information, which is free anyways, and proving in the process that you are the person who can help them apply it. And that's what they pay for. Now that we painted the whole framework, we need to talk about conversation dynamics that bring everything to life. The first important point is who controls the conversation. In every damn conversation, someone is leading and someone is following. And the person who's asking the questions is the one who's leading. So your job is to always be the one asking, to guide the conversation, to steer where it goes, and to never hand over the control. This is something that most coaches mess up constantly without realizing it. Especially fitness coaches, because sometimes the person they're talking to will start asking them fitness questions. Oh, what does your speed look like? Or what do you think about keto? And a coach starts answering because they want to be helpful. But what happened in reality is that you handed over the control. So now you are in a reactive position instead of a leading one. If you are better at DMs, you take back the control. You answer briefly, and then you redirect. Yeah, keto works for some people, but honestly, it depends on your lifestyle. What does your typical week look like food-wise right now? Boom, you are back in the driver's seat. The second point is asking questions that go somewhere. This is probably the most practical tip of advice that I can give you right now. You never ask a question that can be answered with good, yes, or no, unless you have a clear follow-up already planned. If you say something like, how's your progress been? This is the worst question that you can ask, because they're always going to say, good, and now you're stuck. Where do you go from here? Oh, great, that's awesome. And now you have a dead conversation. Instead, you need to ask something very specific that forces a real answer. What have you implemented since the last time we talked? Now they have to tell you something concrete. And whatever they say, you can play into it. Oh, interesting. What has that done for you? And now you're flowing from one question to another. Each one is pulling more information out, and each one is bringing you closer to realizing that they have gaps. The rule is this: before you say anything, you should already know what they're going to say based on what you just said. And that's the main thing. You need to guide them. The third and most underrated point is voice messages. Once you've exchanged a few messages and there's a real conversation happening, start sending voice notes. That's huge for a few reasons. First, your voice carries more trust than text. They hear your tone, your energy, the fact that you're a real person who actually cares about what they're saying. That builds connection faster than any written messages ever could. Second, if you get them to send a voice message back to you, that's one of the strongest signals that they're genuinely engaged. Nobody records a 30-second voice note if they're trying to be polite and end the conversation. If they're sending you voice messages, they want to talk to you. They trust you. And that usually means they're on the path of becoming a client. And one little nuance is how you restart that conversations. Sometimes conversations die. That's natural. Someone stops responding, or they gave you a one-word answer and you didn't know how to respond to recover. That happens, but here's how you bring it back. The best way is with story replies. If the person posts their Instagram stories, swipe up and then ask them a genuine question about whatever they posted. Not something like a like and then you move on. If they are in the gym, don't say nice workout. Ask, what gym is that? I've been looking for a good one. Give them something open-ended that they actually have to respond to. And once the conversation starts, you're back in it. You can naturally circle back to their goals and their struggles when the moment feels right. Another quick tip is to go back into the old conversations and then just like one of their messages. So that bumps up the chat to the top of their inbox and it puts you back in the radar without you having to say anything that feels forced. And if you're going to re-engage with a DM, reference something specific from your last conversation. Don't say, how's the gym going? That's a dead-end question. And we already said why that doesn't work. They're going to say, good. Say something like, hey, how's the new work on split been treating you? You were telling me you were going to switch things up. Now they have to give you a real answer and the conversation has somewhere to go. And another important part is post-booking finishers. You have DMs, you have videos, you book a call, and then in between a call, there's the most crucial moment. This has a massive impact whether people actually show up or whether they close. The time between someone booking a call and them actually showing up on a call is the most important window in the entire sales process. Think about what happened in their head. They just agreed to get on a call with someone who might try to sell them something expensive. That's a big deal for them. And it's the scariest commitment they made so far. They are second guessing themselves. They are nervous. They are wondering if they're about to waste their time or get pressure into something they're not sure about. So what most coaches do in this window is nothing. They just wait for the call. Maybe they send a reminder the day before. But here's what you should do instead. First, send them a short video explaining what the call is going to look like. Frame it like you're giving them more free value. Hey, I'm looking forward for our chat. I'm going to send you a quick video that goes over exactly how I help people so you can show up knowing what to expect and get some free value before we even talk. This is super powerful because they're getting another piece of content that's helpful from you, which deepens the trust, and they're also walking into the call without any anxiety and not knowing what's going to happen. And second, keep sending them free value. If they told you about a specific problem, send them another resource that help with it. The more problems you solve before the call, the more certain they become that you're the right person. And third, talk to them about normal stuff in the days leading up to the call. Don't talk about fitness or business, just life in general. Say, how's your week going? What are you up to this weekend? Whatever that doesn't apply to fitness and business. Build even more human connection, so that when they sit down on a call, they don't feel like they're talking to a stranger. They feel like they're talking to someone who already helped them and who they already know. This might look like small touches, but they change everything. Your show-up rate goes up, your close rate goes up, and the amount of people willing to pay goes up. Because by the time the call starts, it's not like a sales call anymore. It's just the last step of a relationship that you've already built. Now, this is helpful, but I want to zoom out a second here, because it's important that you see how DMs fit in a bigger picture. Everything I just walked you through only works if you have the right content behind it, because the DMs are just the bridge. The content, it's what actually moves someone from I just saw this guy real to I trust the person and I want to work with them. And I already have another video that breaks down what your content specifically needs to say and what beliefs you need to shift in someone's mind before they ever buy from you. I link it because that goes deep in the topic and this video is already long enough. But in short is this: before someone will pay you for coaching, they need to believe certain things, and there's 11 agreements that they need to go through. That their problem is actually solvable, that your approach is different from what they tried before, that it can work specifically for the situation, that the timing is right, that it's appropriate for them to invest in themselves, and a bunch of other things. And most coaches are trying to achieve all of this in a 30-minute call with a stranger. That's why it feels hard, because it is hard. Just think about what's happening. You are trying to change someone's beliefs that they had for their entire life in a call where they have their guard up. You are not going to do that. But if your content handles most of those beliefs shift before the call ever happens, that call is going to become so much easier. You don't have to convince anyone about anything. You're just simply going to help them with the payments. And this is how you can achieve a high closing rate, because your prospects have already been through a journey that you're not trying to accomplish on the call itself. It's much longer than that. Now, if you don't want to take care of the DM setting, actually building the content to get people to buy from you without them having to object on the call, I have an entire done for you service where we handle the part for you. So you just have to coach, we take care of the marketing, we actually nurture your clients before they ever get on a call to you, and so you just have to close them with ease. If you're interested, down below there's going to be a link to see the entire process. Or if you want to book directly a call, there's going to be a link to book a call directly with me.